Good morning again. Welcome back to Jen's Awesome Show. I'm here with Austin Linney, and we're going to talk a little bit about the community aspect of Metaverse. So tell me a bit here. What does community mean to you?
If you study human emotion, which I do on a regular basis because I'm a coach, and in people's world, if you trace back all the problems, we'll just call them problems for lack of a better word, um, issues from not feeling loved, issues from problems at work, so on and so on, right? We can go down the list. It all stems back to not feeling appreciated or involved in a community, right? You could study, which I do, you could study history, and we're built from a tribal community. It's how we started, right? And it was very prevalent when COVID happened that people were not really upset. They were just lacking that sense of community. And that's where we are with the meta universe is somewhere where we would already have been. But I think it's only sped up that sense of community, and the internet allows you to have access to people, like I remember I think it was like 7 months ago. I remember like one day I had a talk with somebody in Ohio, New York, Miami, Istanbul, Spain, China, and like Switzerland. And I was like, that's a global day. Like I just hit a global day, and it was just like so easy, right? And then on one call, like people were in all different parts of the world. And I think as my fiance would say, you have community every day because you're on a million meetings, right? And so, the community can look like so many different things, right? And it could be community in your job. It could be community in something you're involved in. And really all we're seeking at the end of the day is to be a part of a community and be accepted, right? Even if you are what they call a black sheep, which is who I labeled myself as, there was still a group of black sheeps that could relate, so it's like it's no matter how you slice the bread, there's you're searching for that. And if you really study the business aspects of Web3 and meta, and you really like dig in, you truly understand that the only thing it's actually promoting is moving away from an Amazon or Walmart or a bigger store having all the control. The community is getting a say now. Like, we want this product, we want this thing, and that's really when I understood that about what this was. Even though I didn't understand every aspect of it, I was like, I can get behind that message. And so that's why I've been all in on it since then. When that clicked for me.
That's pretty fun, and that's interesting too. So how do you think having that influence of community on business decisions is how does that make Web3 businesses different or
Well,
special?
it makes it interesting and tricky because
Mm-hmm.
you have a human emotion, multiple human emotions, and then ultimately you have to. What I think it's going to have to do with the owner. Let's just use for lack of a better word, the owner, the person that started it. I think you're going to have to start a business with lack of ego, right? Because meaning that somebody could come along and a lot of times in life, what I study is like when a business transitions, like, so like here's the business that's ran for 70 years, and then maybe the CEO or the family gets out of the way and sells it to somebody else. Like, you have to at some point realize that there's somebody out there that has a better view of your business moving forward. That season that you put it in is long gone, right? And so when we're building our businesses, it's not about us as owners. It's about the people that are going to be running the business day to day and who they can bring on, and so on and so on. So it's this multi-layer impact that you're leaving, and that to me is the exciting part when you really drill down to community and kind of the aspects of what makes it work. But then also understand on the other side, there's a lot of dynamics and personalities in a community, right? And so I
Mm-hmm.
think from a person who's setting this up, we'll just use that definition of expectations and outcomes have to be extremely, extremely clear and defined, or you're going to have, pure chaos.
I definitely agree with that based on my very limited exposure to committees and how it's a lot like herding cats. There's chaos, and then when the expectations aren't met, there's a whole other that chaos is different. It's that's a really good tip. I like it.
I actually have a good buddy. Funny enough, I actually released this podcast today. He is a high level coach for many companies, and he said that he believes that the single biggest problem ever in business is communication. There's no other. He says yeah, your sales needs work, yeah, your marketing needs this, your bookkeeping needs some help, but it's ultimately, how did those things get that way in the first place? Improper communication.
That's huge. I yeah, it really, really is. Okay, so let's take that a step further then. So how would you say, I mean, the metaverse obviously accelerated rapidly due to a need for community. Now that we're kind of on the other side of that and starting in some places to come out of the COVID restrictions a little and gather in person some more, how do you see the role of the metaverse either disrupting or supporting or both with traditional community?
I think that ultimately it's going to take the people that thought, okay, here's the biggest issue I run into. A lot of people prescribe to the old school way of doing business, which is, I'm going to tell you what to do aggressively, and then you're going to go do it, and I don't give a shit what you have to say. And I think I'll use a perfect example. I just flew to Florida to go walk 2 hotels that we're buying, and I just hired the current property manager. Okay. Within meeting her for like 18 hours and hired her, right? Like, and she's now working for us. But I only did that because I actually asked what she needed in life. It wasn't, yeah, she got a bump in her salary, but like, it's really not that big of a deal. She didn't really need it. I asked, what do you really want? Well, I want this, and I want to help with this, and I want to do this. So if I can give you all 3 of those things, you're in. Yeah, and nothing had to do with the business at all. It was, I want some more time in my life to travel. I want this, and I want a little more control so I can help here because I feel like I'm a value add. Okay, great. Done. But that was only because I stopped for 2 seconds and sat down with her for 2 hours and asked her about her life and found out about her as a person. And just so we're clear, I took a red eye, so I was on 48 hours of no sleep. But I did this anyway because it was super important because I care about her, and what everybody says to me is like, when you come into our work environment, like, you're in the family now. You're in the family now. This isn't some like, I'm the dictator and you're going to do this. It's like, my team does most of my work without me, and they would want to do the extra thing because they are supported.
That's huge. That's also how it works here at the Uplift as well, and it's huge.
100%. I think that ultimately you're seeing a lot. What I found out about people really, really early in life, and mainly in my last 3 years, is that when you don't feel like you don't have an opportunity, when you feel like you're stuck or there's a ceiling and you can't get past it, your effort to want to try hard really goes away.
Completely.
And so if you can make them feel like they have a voice, right? And more importantly, like, allow them to like make mistakes.
Yeah.
You know, like, sorry, everybody's like running in the RV park. I'm just making sure they're not dropping a bomb here or something. So when people start running by really quickly, you start getting a little nervous. Yeah.
Yeah, that's usually time to panic a bit. Oh dear.
Yeah, no, we're good though. I think we're good.
Okay.
My fiance is still out the door. She doesn't seem to be bothered. So
okay,
so
that's good.
Yeah, no, so we're good. But yeah, no, and what happened for me, and just everybody asked me, they're like, how do you do so much? And I'm like, leading up to where we're sitting today, right? CEO of multiple companies, many clients, all these kind of things. I knew that my main focus for like 6 months, I read nothing else, was leadership books. Like, what it meant to be a leader of people, but did it in the ethical way, the right way. And so I read all of John Maxwell's books, which he's written 35 of them. And he is amazing. That talks about stories on how you lead and everything. And like, it's paid off so much. because I have to make sure that I'm not making a decision based off of my own ego, but what's best for that employee and that vision of the company. And ultimately, the vision of the company, right, the mission, whatever you want to call it, is greater than one person. And so you can't put your ego or yourself up above that. And sometimes that you have to ruffle some feathers, but ultimately, same way I'll tell all the CEOs we work with, you gave me the mission, you gave me the vision, and if you're the one in the way of the mission, well, then I'm going to remove you. It's very simple, and just understanding that we have people to impact. And when you can keep that as your North Star, it really helps push the needle forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay. So how do you see the role of the metaverse in all of that? Like, how does it fit, not fit? Is it just naturally sort of working, or is it different?
I'll tell you what, I'll use it from my context because things I hear, I coach a lot of real estate agents. I don't know how familiar or not familiar you are with a company called EXP. EXP is a real estate brand that's came out in the last couple of years. It's a non-office, extreme everything online real estate brokerage. Okay. So meaning they don't have offices. You can people can be on your teams from wherever you want. There's good things about the business model. There's bad things about the business model. It doesn't really matter. But one of the things they did is they created a meta universe for their training. So when you're trained, you're in a classroom and you're a little avatar and you're hanging out and you're talking to other agents all around the world. And people really seem to like that. They're having conversations. You see the person. They're doing speaking events. They're in classrooms. They're whatever. And so that was one of the first companies in the real estate space that embraced the technology, and it seems to really be helping the employees, and it adds a little community to the situation and stuff like that. So it's one of those things where you have to create a space where you have to coach them. Right, people are very cognizant of the meta universe. They're like, oh, but once they start getting a use for it, right? One of the things is like and I'm using this as a joke because I think it's hilarious. But when my grandmother first texted me, like I almost lost it. I was like, what? I was like, what's going on right now? My grandma just texted me. What's the deal? And then and if I ever saw my grandmother in the meta universe, I would think I would officially be done with life. But what I'm saying is you're starting to see the older generation embrace it some. So my question to you is, I say all that to say this: could there be a scenario where maybe quality time for your family is the family or the grandfather? You show them how to use it, get in with the kids, right? And so now you're connecting generations through the meta universe. I think there's a real conversation where that's, and granted, I mean, obviously you want to see them in person and you want to do all that stuff, but to me that feels like an easy olive branch, right? From getting the whole family involved.
I really like that, and I think it also presents an interesting challenge. A lot of the grandparent generation who I've met are not quite wrapping their minds around the game part of things. The metaverse idea seems good in theory, but then getting them in and experiencing all of it can be a bit more challenging, but it depends on the person too.
Oh, 100%. And I think ultimately, just understanding it, and like you saw me when you showed me the first time I was in, I was like, man, this is so cool, so it's like having that person, and I like metaphors. That's my thing. But what's a really annoying group of people? People that love wine. Do you want to know why? Because they hold it up on a pedestal and they treat everybody else like crap because they don't know what they're talking about, And so
okay,
yeah, right. You know exactly what I'm talking about when I bring it up. And so all I'm saying is, just because you know a lot about the meta universe doesn't mean that you can't have a soft spot or show somebody or take time out of your day to walk them through, and maybe their first step with it will be a lot more pleasurable than to be turned off because they were looked down upon or taught down. Like everybody learns from somewhere,
That's also pretty huge. And I think Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the grandparent generation too, because they're the least active demographic from what I can tell, and probably the one that would be a very interesting voice to have in the mix. Not in terms of anything other than just different generation, different wisdom.
Yeah, I think ultimately how somebody is introduced to something says a lot about how long they'll stay around, right?
Yeah.
And you know, Zoom and all these things, and you know, like we just flew down to Destin to hang out with some clients in person. Now that's game changer to like meet them in person and hang out.
Mm-hmm.
But that all started on Zoom first, you know, and so that second layer, like you know, for me, like perfect example in life, dude. My
Mm-hmm.
first podcast. Oh my god, I couldn't breathe. I almost passed out. Like and like full disclosure, it was when I was still drinking, so I was like pretty heavily medicated, and like even that I like almost felt like I was gonna pass out. Well, fast forward 5 years later, and I've done north of 2,000, and it doesn't even matter. Flick on the light, record, don't record, I don't care. It doesn't matter. It just. But I got introduced to it because I was excited about a subject, and then you kind of just keep going from there, right? And
Yeah.
I think we have to be careful when we introduce people to our new world if we don't open an olive branch with kindness.
Absolutely, that's absolutely huge, and I think we'll be seeing a lot more of the new people, especially after the sale, but also leading up to it. There are a fair number of people that we're bringing in from other communities who have never experienced the uplift, so it's interesting. We're certainly learning a lot in terms of strengths and weaknesses when it comes to the onboarding system. I really don't like the term onboarding. Introductory system. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's certainly a thing. But we're looking. You mentioned working with family. You as opposed to having coworkers, you have a work family, and that's huge. That's describes the uplift, perfectly. But it also very much describes the community that we're working on building. Um, we're not inviting a whole bunch of projects in just to make some noise. We're inviting people that we really like and want to be a part of the Uplift family. People we want to connect to other people, and where people are on the maps and who's around them is not accidental. There's a lot of thought put into that as well, and who your big neighbors are going to be, and then who your new neighbors are going to be. So that's a question I'd like to pose to you. Your plot in the metaverse is on DGen 1, and you have some neighbors that are very visible, and you're about to have some new neighbors as of Saturday. What do you think, keeping the community focus in mind, what do you think makes a good metaverse neighbor? What would you look for?
Yeah, I think ultimately understanding that, like, regardless, right? Like I said, I'm a metaphor guy, and relatability. It's a very interesting concept to live in an RV and be in an RV park with people.
Mm-hmm.
and how close the spot is to where you are when you're looking out your window. Who can you see? Do they keep it tidy around the RV? Are they loud at night? How loud's their music? You have to be very cognizant, right? If you have a home, it's all relative, right? Be loud as you want, backyard, but as they say in life, a bad neighbor can ruin a great house.
Mm-hmm.
And so understanding those concepts of what it is to be a good neighbor, and just to be checking on people and make sure that they have quiet hours around here, and just make sure that you're cognizant of all those things, I think would translate the same kind of duties and things. And then I think what would be cool, now that I'm thinking out loud, back in the day, they used to have block parties all the time. Well, maybe in the meta universe, you have a block party every Friday afternoon, right? So those are things, right? That just made me like think off the top of my head.
We're definitely working on that. We've got the happy hour at 7 Eastern every Friday, and everybody's always welcome for that. It's usually a pretty good time.
Mhm.
And that's in conjunction with the Twitter space, which is hit and miss technologically, but it's accessible for the most part. So that's a thing. We had a little trouble with the audio last week. It didn't audio. So other than that, it's been delightful. I haven't had too many issues with it, but it's every once in a while there's that one stick in the mud. But everybody's still in the metaverse hanging out, and so you can always join in. And I don't know, it's mostly people running around like lunatics with fireworks and stuff, and that's a good time.
Yeah, well, and I think uh, one of the things that's interesting as you talk about all that, and something I love, and I'll harp on this. You know, when was the last time as an adult you had some fun, right?
I have an answer.
Yeah, when's that?
Not last weekend, but the weekend before that, we rented a bouncy castle water sled and had a joint birthday party for the kids. And I kind of elbowed my way in and made it my birthday party too because it was fun.
I love it.
So
That's what I'm saying. So I think you'd be surprised, especially old people that have been in business a long time, if you insert some fun back in your life, then you'd be surprised how much you show up in other places with a little more joy and a little more pep. And that's something I enjoy about kids. You look at their faces and they're just so they don't even none of that crap matters. They're just like out there just having a good time and they're so in awe. And so like I think we need to do a little bit more of that.
I wholeheartedly agree. And that kind of ties nicely into my next question, too. If you do a lot of work with business people, maybe if you could speak a little bit to the value of having social time and not only why it's important and how it's important, but how do you make it happen?
Well, what's interesting is like we have 6 VAs on staff and we have 2 project managers and I've got, 3 co-owners with me. And you know what the VAs and the team wants to do more than anything? They want to have lunch on Zoom with us. That's it.
Yep.
Like that's it. They want 45 minutes. They want to talk about life. They don't want to talk about business. And it's like it really just highlights the fact that it's like, dude, we're gonna work. Like we're driven people. We know the vision. We're excited to have you as a boss. But the amount of texts that I've got in the last 2 months about how great of a boss I am, dude, that right there is worth its weight in gold, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
it's just one of those things where, like, when you start hearing it, right? I think I'll speak for myself. When you're an employee for many years, especially when you don't have the greatest bosses all the time, you think a lot about when I would be a boss. Like, I know I'm going to do it different. And then, like, to get the opportunity for it to come full circle, man, it's an extremely surreal point of view because think about it this way. Do you know how she texted me yesterday, one of my VAs, and she's like, I just want to let you know, because of you, I was able to get a nicer and safer place for my kids, and they just keep thanking me every day. And I'm like, oh my God.
That's huge.
I'm like, oh my, like, is there anything better? I really don't think there's anything better. And so that's when you start realizing that this is when you have people's livelihoods, their families, like it's super important that they understand the expectations of themselves. And then I understand the expectations that they need out of a boss. And man, that relationship is very sacred to me.
I absolutely love that. And that's a something that we've talked about a lot at the Uplift, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why the happy hour is important too, because we do get to actually socialize. I mean, there's a business focus to it, but it's not the same as sitting in a meeting. It's more interactive, more surprisey, lots of community, and it's a ton of fun.
Yeah, 100%. And so, like, it's like, man, okay. So I have a rule in life: chase things that give you energy and make you happy. Well,
Yeah.
how am I not going to chase more opportunities to make my team super excited? And I bought them, like, they didn't have a great computer, and I bought them a laptop, and like they were like, now I can work from the coffee shop in the morning. And I'm like, it's those little things that you don't think
Yeah.
of, and it's like, man, that's the best ever.
Oh yeah. Well, and the computer can be a real game changer too. Like my old one's a bit of a potato, and it changed. I don't wait 15 minutes for it to boot and do whatever it does with whatever it has.
True
I push a button and I
True
go.
story. I had a refurbished Mac Mini is what I use. I had a refurbished one that a friend gave me a while back when mine crapped out. And I was just like making excuses for it like all the time. You know, you don't know any better.
Right.
And then I got a new one and it was like 80 times better. And I was like, this is the greatest decision I ever made in my life. I was like, I didn't realize how bad it was.
Yeah, no, I'm now on a mission, like probably every 3 to 5 years, think about renewing the technology, because it's, from a productivity standpoint, it is so worthwhile.
To hit that vein, hit that vein hard, and this is going to really resonate with everybody. I'm very easy to invest in other people and my employees. It's very hard for me to invest in myself. And so the thing that I use 90% of the week, it needs to be top priority in my life, which is my computer, right? Yes. And that took me a long time to make peace with that. But dude, this is your job. You know, your lights, your Zoom, your webcam, like this is your job. And so like trying to shift that mentality that you deserve nice things too, right? I can't tell you how many people we work on that stuff, you know, like you deserve the good thing too, not just everybody around you, you know?
Yeah, that was a learning curve for me in the beginning when I realized that I did not have a great setup, and if I wanted to do my job, I needed something better, and that had to be okay. And that took some getting used to. But it's absolutely huge. And it makes all the difference. Like even something for me, having an ergonomic keyboard is the difference between happily typing and not so happily typing.
Exactly.
But yeah, computers and pillows.
Pillows. Dude, that sounds like its own. That sounds like its own YouTube show.
It should be. Yeah, it should be. But pillows are a big one. People are like, yeah, my pillow's fine. No, your pillow's 10 years old and it's flat and smelly. Get a new one. But people are so reluctant, but it affects your quality of sleep, your quality of life. It's such a minor thing you can do for yourself, but it so often is overlooked. And I mean, I don't know, start with your pillow today and deal with everything else, but build up to it.
Exactly. You deserve a $50 pillow. Make it happen.
Yeah, or even a $30 pillow that's not 10 years old and smelly. Anything. Start realistic. It's the thing.
I love it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really hit the nail on the head here for me for all of my questions and all of the big things I wanted to touch on in terms of community and family being more than just the people you're related to, but also the importance of having social time. And it is important. So that's something, and thinking about the different ways to use the metaverse and be that good neighbor. And what you said about expectations, and if I don't know what your expectations are, I'm just going to ask, because that's half the battle. People don't always know what each other's expectations are, and communication's an issue. And so if I move in next to anybody in the metaverse, expect me to be asking, what do you want out of your plot? What do you want out of your neighbors?
Yeah, life is super easy when you just ask for what you want instead of try to think about what they want.
Yeah, it actually is. It really is. And we've got Lisa here in the comments, but what's a good pillow? Well, I don't have a good answer because that one's very subjective.
Correct.
Yes, that's unfortunately. Yep. I know what a bad pillow is.
Correct.
It's the one that ruins your life. But beyond that, I don't have anything that's not subjective. So on that note, I think we'll do a see you later, unless you had anything you wanted to add.
No, that's it. Thank you so much for always bringing me on. I appreciate it.
This is delightful, and thank you. And we'll see everybody tomorrow. I have somebody on tomorrow morning, and we'll see you then.